Join me today as we speculate over whether or not Lego saw the disaster that was the Acolyte coming and chose to not engage with it. This is the Geek Ball channel. My name is Bobby, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not Lego saw the crash of the Acolyte coming. Now, some of you are probably wondering what those things have to do with each other. If you don't follow Lego, this is definitely going to be an odd thing to contemplate here. And it extends to more than just Lego, but that's going to be what we're going to start with here. So, what do I mean? Well, it's simple. There are no Lego Acolyte sets. None. And so far, the Skeleton Crew, as of this recording, only has a trailer, and it already has a Lego set. So, what happened here? Now, it could be. Now, I don't know the entire process for how Lego does this. I don't know if they get still shots. I don't know if they get the actual show itself. If they get like pre-production stuff. I don't know. I don't know what material they get beforehand. Because they obviously have to have access to something because they make sets based on shows that aren't even out yet. So I don't know if they looked through that and saw that, hey, this just doesn't look great, or hey, this show isn't really aimed at kids, so maybe we shouldn't make sets on it. Now, that particular argument would fall flat because Andor got one Lego set. I didn't get a lot, but it got one. And Andor is definitely not aimed at children. So I don't think it's that. But I mean, that could be it. It could be a case of they just didn't see anything in there that could easily be turned into a set, because that's kind of another thing that Lego focuses on, especially for Star Wars, is that generally speaking, there's got to be some kind of action. Okay, like they they don't make a whole lot of structures and play sets. They tend to make a lot of ships and vehicles, and like war droids and things like that. Which means that a lot of their sets are focused on the original trilogy and the prequel Clone Wars, the Clone Wars era of the prequels. So the Acolyte didn't really have anything like that. I mean, yeah, I guess you could make a set of whenever old Smilo Ren confronts a bunch of the Jedi uh, on the forest planet there, but there's not going to be much to it. I mean, he just takes them out. You know, maybe you could have the big bugs that attacked, maybe the little shack, but it'd be very minifigure heavy set, which I mean it'd be an expensive set. Now, if you look at Kenobi, it did have a set, kind of in that vein, the whole where Vader and Kenobi fight, and Vader sets Obi-Wan on fire, and that set gets a lot of criticism. Um, so it's hard to say, but perhaps the rest of us should have looked at that as a sign that the Acolyte wasn't so great, wasn't going to make it, whatever. And then if we look at the broader picture, there were no figures just like ready to go. The Black Series figures came out, at least locally to me. This could have been different elsewhere. I believe they came out after the show was over, instead of Hasbro displaying a confidence in the show being good and having them ready to go when the show premiered. Now, I mean, you could argue that, okay, well, they came out relatively soon after the show was over. Fair point. But if you look at Star Wars marketing of the past, like, it was a big deal. Now, I know the Phantom Menace is not a great comparison here because there hadn't been a Star Wars movie in 16 years when it came out. It was a really big deal, and the Acolyte was never going to be on that level. But like, there was a specific day that the merchandise for the Phantom Menace came out before the movie premiered, and it was clear that like this was only just the beginning of the merchandise for it, and that applied to Lego and like the action figures from at the time it was Kenner. I believe it was still Kenner. They had already been bought by Hasbro. Um, so what was this a warning sign? Definitely. Are we ever going to see any Lego sets from the Acolyte? Well, that's hard to say, but I would say it's unlikely because again, most of it is set pieces and fights, and it's not really geared towards children. Now, maybe we'll see a set of the Jedi ship, or maybe the prison ship, but that's really all I can see them making here. So, it's uh, it's hard to say. Uh, it's not impossible, but I would say, given that the show's been canceled, I would say it's unlikely. And again, that also comes back to other things that you see with the Lego line. Um, you don't see them return to certain things very frequently. Like, they made the sets for Rogue One, and I don't think after they were released that they've ever come back to that. I don't think they ever came back to more sets for Solo or redoing sets, because they do those. Because there's, X-Wings and TIE Fighters. I think there's like almost a dozen of each one. That's hyperbole. I think it's more like 6 or 7, but still, the point is they do that. And I think if you look at what works for Lego and what is definitely not working for Hasbro, this is just another sign of problems for Star Wars in general. The sets that Lego again keeps focusing on are the ones set during the original trilogy, so the Rebels and the Empire, and one set during the Clone Wars. And the Clone Wars is a really smart move because they can just take the basic clone trooper and repaint them about a bajillion different ways to be like, oh, it's this fighting group and it's this fighting group, and these go to this Jedi and this Jedi, and oh, it's been 10 years since we made any troopers for this guy, so let's make a few more, and oh, we haven't made this commander yet. Like, there's a deep well of material there, and you just keep repainting things, and some people will buy them. And for the original trilogy, I guess people just keep rebuying X-Wings and TIE Fighters, because it took forever to get a remake of the TIE Bomber and the TIE Interceptor. It's been a while since we've had a B-Wing. I think we've had an A-Wing more recently, and it might have been the Resistance A-Wing from the sequel trilogy, which looks very similar. And then every once in a while we get a Y-Wing. And of course the Y-Wing's a funky one because it actually has two different designs, because what you see in the original trilogy is actually a stripped down version. The regular one is actually from around the Clone Wars era and actually has like an exterior. It doesn't have a bunch of exposed bits everywhere. So, but I think that one's only gotten one, maybe 2 sets. And then of course on the anniversaries they bring back the Naboo Starfighter and Maul's Sith Infiltrator. So, and then Hasbro, meanwhile, like, there's a video going around right now of a Boba Fett, I think it's a Black Series figure, at some store for $1. And there's like a whole bin full of them. And I mean, I know that like Ollie's and Ross have these things cheap, but I've never seen them for $1. And that's bad. Especially if it's that deluxe one that was like $33. Like, that's ridiculous. And you can put that pretty squarely at the feet of the Book of Boba Fett, for not being a great show and really kind of trashing the character. So anyway, that's how you can tell what still is popular with Star Wars, or where Lego feels they can make inroads, because they've been making sets now that I don't think are from anything. Like, we did the the Watch Us Build video. Let's Build, that's what I called it. The Let's Build video of the Stormtrooper kind of mech armor thing. As far as I'm aware, that's not canon with anything. Nor would the Darth Vader and Boba Fett one and the recently released Luke one, which I have, and I'm going to build that, record that, building that, and kind of compare it to the Stormtrooper mech. That's all just Lego realizing, hey, we have the parts to make really cool kind of mech sets, and they did the same thing with the Marvel figures, and I think they're doing it with DC now as well. So, something to think about. Then they have a set at the moment that just came out that has a TIE Fighter and an X-Wing, but you can like swap parts on them, which does allow you to make a former EU canon thing. If I recall correctly, this was canon. It's called the TIE Ugly, and I believe it's the central ball from the TIE Fighter with the wings of the X-Wing, or it could be the other way around. It could be the TIE Fighter wings on the X-Wing cockpit. I don't remember which way it was, but you can make those with this set because the parts are interchangeable. So that one's kind of canon, maybe, if you look at it funny. But Lego does dip into the EU occasionally. It's been a while since they made Knights of the Old Republic sets, but they did make them. So, Anyway, just some random musings on, was the lack of Acolyte Lego sets a predictor of failure? And will we ever see any? Like I said, I don't think we will. And if we do, it'll be the Jedi ship, or maybe like I said, maybe the prison ship, but probably the Jedi ship. That's really the only thing I'd go with from that show. Because there's just not any like iconic scenes, or maybe a battle pack down the road that's got some of the characters in it. You never know. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that might happen at some point, but I wouldn't count on it. So anyway, just as how in the past people have used Lego sets to figure out plot points to movies based on the figures that are in them. Here we're going with maybe that was an indicator that the show wasn't great. And yet one more reason why it was doomed. So anyway, just some random musings on that topic. Saw that, it kind of got a little bit of discussion there online, and thought I'd throw my 2 cents into it. And that unfortunately we just don't really know. We don't know what all Lego actually gets. We don't know what their criteria are. Maybe they had some ideas and Lucasfilm rejected them. I don't know how much of a free hand they have in making these things. I'm assuming, like other licenses, Lucasfilm has to okay them. But then you see things like the Dark Millennium Falcon that just came out, which is I think is just something they made up. So, although it gives into at least one fan theory as far as Darth Jar Jar. But anyway, let me know what you think down there in the comments. Was that an indicator? Did Lego see something in it that that a lot of people also saw in it and knew it was going to be a disaster? Or is it just a matter of there's just nothing really in the show to build decent sets around, and so Lego passed? One or the other. Or any number of other reasons. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting are the greatest ways you guys can help us grow the channel, and appreciate that. But otherwise, we'll see you folks later.